The envelope looked routine, a white bank logo against thin paper. I opened it over the kitchen sink, expecting junk or a credit card offer. Instead, it read, "Notice of delinquency. I don't have a mortgage. My name is Michael Ellison, 47. I rent a small 2-bedroom in Dallas, drive a 10-year-old Tacoma, and keep every warranty in labeled folders. My life is plain but paid for. My parents' house on Pecan Bluff is the only property that ever mattered, left to both sons when Mom passed so it wouldn't be torn apart by lawyers. We never sold it, never refinanced. It was supposed to stay whole until we agreed. The one clean thing left of family. The letter listed a loan amount of $250,000, collateral, 1141 Pecan Bluff. Borrowers, Mark Ellison and Michael Ellison. Mark is my younger brother, 2 years behind me and 2 decades of mistakes ahead. He sells schemes, used cars, crypto tips, miracle supplements. Always chasing big breaks, always broke. I haven't trusted him with a handshake in years. Apparently now he'd trusted me, with my forged signature. I called the bank. A headset clerk verified my name. Loan originated 8 months ago, notarized at a UPS store on Greenville. 8 months ago I was in El Paso, commissioning hospital switchgear. I still have hotel invoices and flight confirmations to prove it. While I was eating takeout in a Marriott, someone wrote my name onto a mortgage application and tied my family home to Mark's hunger. The PDF hit my inbox 10 minutes later. The signature almost fooled me, the slanted M, the heavy cross on the E. Close enough for strangers, wrong enough for me. Each letter dragged like someone copying a pattern instead of writing their own name. My chest went hollow. Fraud wasn't a stranger now. It was my brother, sitting in my skin on official paper. At dusk, I drove to Pecan Bluff. The porch sagged the same way it had since Dad built it. Mom's wind chimes still knocked together in the evening breeze, and on the door handle hung a shiny new key box. Not ours, not family, a realtor's. That was the moment it hit me. This wasn't a clerical error. It was a plan. Mark's plan, wearing my name like a mask. I didn't knock. Mark's apartment sat above a tire shop, the hallway thick with rubber and fryer grease. The door was unlocked. He was on the couch with a beer, sports channel muted, smirk already loaded. "Mike," he said, like nothing was wrong. "What brings you here?" I dropped the loan packet on the coffee table. "This." He glanced down, shrugged. "Paperwork. It's a mortgage, Mark, on Mom and Dad's house, with my name forged on it." He swirled his beer like it was vintage Cabernet. "Relax, it's temporary. Bridge loan, little investment. House has equity. We're just making it work for us." "We," I snapped. "You mean you? I never signed." He leaned forward, voice dropping to that conspiratorial whisper he used in high school when he wanted me to cover for him. "Once the deal closes, the bank gets paid back. We split the profit. Clean. You committed fraud." He set the beer down hard enough to slosh. "Don't use that word. Family won't side with you if you talk like that. Everyone knows you've been strapped since the divorce. Rust on your truck, coupons in your wallet. You look like the desperate one, not me." "You told them I'm broke?" "I told them you were trying to get a loan, but couldn't manage it alone. So I stepped in. Hero move." He spread his hands. "I'm protecting the house. You should be thanking me." "Protecting?" I laughed once, sharp. "You're bleeding it dry." He stood, stepping closer. "People trust me. You're the dull one, the guy who never risks. Without me, you're invisible." My fists clenched at my sides. "When's the next family dinner?" "Tomorrow. Carol's hosting." He smirked. Why? I'll be there. Aunt Carol's dining room smelled like lemon bars and floor polish. Kids sat at the small table. Uncle Jim swirled whiskey. Rachel arranged forks. Mark held court, telling a story about our upcoming real estate flip. Carol's smile was brittle. Michael, glad you could come. Mark turned sympathetic. Yeah, Mike's been under a lot of stress. We should all be supportive. Supportive? As if I was the fragile one. I opened the folder. Mark forged my name on a $250,000 loan. He used Mom and Dad's house as collateral. The room went silent. Rachel's eyes widened. That can't be true. Mark shook his head slowly. See? Paranoia. He's embarrassed about money, so now he's blaming me. Uncle Jim frowned. Michael, you've had money problems since the divorce, haven't you? Bills, yes. Fraud, no. I slid the papers forward. Check the notary date. I was in El Paso. Hotel invoices, flight records. Mark chuckled. You really want to humiliate yourself like this? You'll never prove it. Everyone knows you're jealous. Dad used to say it. Jealous. The word cut sharper than any knife. Rachel folded her arms. You've always resented Mark's initiative. I looked around the table, faces I'd known my whole life, waiting for one to defend me. No one spoke. Mark leaned back, smile widening. See, Mike? Family trusts me, not you. Humiliation burned hotter than rage. I gathered the folder, tucked it under my arm, and walked out. Behind me, Mark's laugh trailed like oil across water, spreading until it coated everything. The silence after Carol's dinner wasn't silence at all. It was a wall. I called Rachel the next morning, straight to voicemail. I tried Uncle Jim. He answered, voice tight. Maybe cool off, Mike. Let things settle. Then he hung up before I could speak. By Friday, the family updates group chat vanished from my phone. Not muted, not archived, gone. I hadn't left. I'd been removed. Scrolling back, I saw years of history, birthday photos, potluck reminders, Dad's memorial arrangements. Threads of belonging cut with one tap. That weekend, I parked across from Pecan Bluff. The porch light was still burned out, the mailbox still crooked. But a shiny new SUV sat in the driveway. Dealer plate barely a week old. Mark's, of course. Across the street, Mrs. Henderson peeked through her curtain. She'd known me since I was 10. This time, she ducked out of sight like I was a stranger. Word had spread. Monday morning, 2 co-workers cornered me by the coffee pot. Hey, Mike, everything okay with your folks' place? I froze. Why? They exchanged glances. Heard you were in foreclosure. Rough stuff. In Mark's version, I was the reckless one who'd mortgaged the house and couldn't pay. He'd made sure his version traveled faster than truth. That afternoon, I called the bank again, pushing through menus until a fraud rep came on. She typed, then said the line I was starting to hate. Both listed borrowers must cooperate to proceed. Both parties. Meaning Mark, the man who put me here. I slammed the phone down so hard my desk rattled. For the first time since this started, my chest felt scraped clean. That night, Rachel finally texted, "You're tearing this family apart. Just let Mark handle it. He knows what he's doing." I stared until the words blurred. What could I answer? They'd already picked a side. Tuesday at the grocery store, I caught whispers near the deli counter. That's him, the brother who lost the house. People avoided my eyes like debt was contagious. Isolation wasn't quiet. It was noise I couldn't answer. Laughter I wasn't invited to. Phone calls I didn't get. Neighbors ducking away from a man who'd never missed a bill but now carried the mark of failure. Dad used to say integrity is what you do when no one's looking. But what about when everyone's looking, and they've already decided you're guilty? That week I learned exile doesn't require distance. It can happen in your own bloodline, in your own town, while your brother wears your name like a mask, and no one cares it doesn't fit. On Wednesday, I called Nancy Alvarez, the only person from high school who'd never bought Mark's act. Now she was an attorney handling real estate disputes and probate. Family messes with paperwork, she called it. Bring everything, she said, and bring your calm. Her office smelled of peppermint tea and toner. Diplomas on one wall, headlines on the other. Title fraud rising, elder estates targeted. She read the loan packet twice, tapped the notary block and said flatly, "You didn't sign this." "No." "Good. Then we fight with facts, not volume. 3 steps. She ticked them off. Fraud affidavit to the lender's fraud unit certified, notary journal demand, and a preservation notice for the UPS store cameras. Forensic signature analysis. We'll also file a notice of disputed interest with the county so every buyer and lender sees a red flag. What do you need from me? Receipts, travel records for the notarization date, emails, expense reports. The boring stuff liars forget you keep. She sent me to Dr. Ria Patel, a forensic examiner with a microscope where most people keep staplers. Ria scanned my signature samples, driver's license, apartment lease, even a birthday card I'd signed for Rachel's kid. On her monitor, she overlaid the loan signature with mine. Forgers copy shape, she said, but they can't copy rhythm. See the hesitation before the H, the careful cross on the T you usually slash without stopping? Preliminary opinion, high probability simulation. Back at Nancy's, her paralegal handed me a neat stack. Fraud affidavit with exhibits, notary demand, CCs to the Secretary of State and the notary's bond carrier. Nancy slid one more sheet across. We'll record this notice of disputed interest today. If the bank tries to accelerate, I'll CC the OCC and CFPB. They love banks who ignore fraud complaints. 2 hours later, Leverage called. "Michael," said Lydia, a realtor from Mom's church. "Mark asked me to host a preview for Pecan Bluff. He said you were unreachable, so he signed for Ellison, M&M. But there's only one signature, and there's already a key box on the door that isn't mine." "Please hold off," I said. "My attorney will contact you." Nancy moved faster. She emailed Lydia a formal notice and CC'd the title company Mark had courted for a quick sale of the back parcel, Dad's 10 dry acres he never touched. By late afternoon, the title officer replied, "Hold placed pending conflicting claims and potential fraud." That evening I drove past the house. A couple stood on the sidewalk with a Zillow printout while Mark played tour guide on the porch. I stayed in my truck and called Nancy on speaker. "Stay put," she said. "I'm blasting cease and desist to him and the agent on Zillow. If he approaches, record. No heroics." Mark's phone buzzed. He looked down, then up, spotting my truck. He walked over, still smiling for his audience. "Folks, 1 sec, family matter," he told them. Then, low to me, "Lawyers now? Cute." "You forged my name," I said. "The bank, title, and state know. The notary's journal and cameras are preserved. Walk away." He leaned in, grin fixed. "You think paper will save you? Paper is how I built this." "Fake paper," I said, tilting my phone so the red rec dot was visible. He stepped back, spun toward the couple. Just aligning signatures, all normal. The next morning, Ria's written opinion landed in my inbox. Nancy filed it with the affidavit and recorded the dispute notice. By noon, the notary's corporate counsel confirmed Journal entry #142 listed Michael Ellison. But the driver's license number was off by 2 digits, and the clerk remembered Michael wearing a baseball cap and signing fast. Nancy sent a preservation demand for the UPS store footage before it cycled. "He didn't even know your license number," she said. "Sloppy criminals rely on charm. Charm fails audits." By evening, the title company suspended escrow. Lydia forwarded a new message from Mark. "Family open house, Saturday 2 p.m., to clear the air." Nancy smiled. "Perfect. Public venue his idea. We'll treat it like a deposition. I'll attend, Rhea if she can. And I've invited a neutral from the title office. You bring exhibits A through D, El Paso travel proof, Rhea's opinion, the notary mismatch, and the county recording numbers. We don't argue. We present." Saturday at 1:58, I parked across from Pecan Bluff. Cars lined both sides of the street. Aunt Carol's lemon bars marched toward the door like nothing bad had ever happened there. Rachel ushered kids inside, and Mark stood at the threshold, smiling wider than a man smiles when the ground under him is solid. I held the envelope of exhibits in my hand, and for the first time in weeks, felt steady. Paper doesn't care who's charming. It only cares who's telling the truth. The family open house looked more like a county fair. Cars jammed the curb, neighbors milling like they'd been promised fireworks. Inside, lemon bars and coffee covered the dining table. Mark floated room to room in a pressed shirt, realtor smile plastered on. When Nancy and I walked in, the buzz dropped half a notch. She handed out business cards with the calm of someone filing taxes. "Attorney for Michael Ellison," she said evenly. "I'll be observing." Mark chuckled. "Don't mind her, folks. My brother's confused about paperwork. Nothing a little family discussion can't fix." I waited until the living room was full. Carol on the sofa, Jim leaning by the window, Rachel with arms crossed. Then I spread my exhibits on the coffee table, El Paso hotel invoices and flight stubs, forensic signature report from Rhea, copy of the notary log showing the wrong license number, county recording receipt showing my notice of disputed interest. Mark's smile thinned. Nancy spoke first. "Ladies and gentlemen, under Texas law, presenting a forged deed of trust constitutes felony fraud. The notary's own employer has preserved surveillance video. Unless Mr. Ellison withdraws, this will proceed to law enforcement." For a beat, no one moved. Then Carol whispered, "Mark?" He laughed too loud. "Lawyers always make things sound scary, but banks want payments, not drama, and payments are coming." Except they weren't. Because right then, Nancy slid a fresh envelope across the table. Inside, a freeze order from the bank's fraud unit. The account tied to the loan was suspended pending investigation. Mark's face drained. "That's impossible." "They acted fast once they saw the evidence," Nancy said. "All draws blocked, attempted withdrawals flagged." The room stirred. Neighbors looked at one another. Uncle Jim muttered, "So, there's no money?" Nancy answered for me. "Funds are frozen. Any attempt to move them will be reported to federal regulators." Mark snatched up his phone, stabbing at the screen. A minute later, he shoved it in his pocket. His online access had been locked. Rachel's voice cracked. "You said this was safe." He tried to recover. Temporary glitch. "Banks freeze accounts all the time," Nancy cut him off. "Not with simultaneous reports to OCC and CFPB. They don't freeze unless they smell criminal exposure." Mark's hands shook as he reached for a drink that wasn't there. He looked at me, fury burning through panic. "You did this." I didn't flinch. "You did. I just showed them where to look." The whispering grew louder. Carol closed the lemon bar tin with a snap. Neighbors excused themselves, muttering. By the time half the room had cleared, Mark looked like a man standing in quicksand, each excuse dragging him deeper. Nancy leaned in close enough only he and I could hear. Federal investigators love paper trails. Yours is sloppy. If you keep going, you'll be explaining this to the FBI. Mark's jaw twitched. You wouldn't. Try me, she said. He slammed a palm against the table. Family doesn't sick feds on each other. Family doesn't forge signatures. My voice cut through the murmurs. That's when my phone buzzed. A blocked number. I stepped into the hall and answered. A clipped voice said, Mr. Ellison, this is Investigator Moore with the State Attorney General's Financial Crimes Unit. We've received multiple referrals about the Pecan Bluff loan. Are you available Monday for a formal interview? I glanced back at the living room where Mark argued with Rachel, Nancy calmly gathering papers. Yes, I said. I'll be there. The twist had arrived. Not just a family feud anymore, but state investigators circling, money frozen, regulators alerted, and my brother's charm slipping like paint in the rain. If you're listening on Revenge Stories Menu 50, don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment. Thank you. Monday morning, I walked into the Attorney General's field office with Nancy at my side and a binder heavy enough to bruise. Investigator Moore met us in a plain conference room, recorder already running. State your name. Michael Ellison. And you are the complainant alleging signature forgery and mortgage fraud by Mark Ellison? Yes. For 2 hours, I laid it out. Hotel receipts, flight records, Ria's forensic report, the notary mismatch, the bank's freeze order. Nancy added citations and case law, her voice like steel wrapped in calm. When we finished, Moore closed the binder. This evidence meets statutory thresholds. We'll coordinate with federal partners. Expect subpoenas for bank accounts and recorded statements. Mr. Ellison, your cooperation is crucial. Your brother is in serious jeopardy. Serious jeopardy. Words heavier than any insult Mark had thrown at me. That evening, Mark called. Against Nancy's advice, I answered. His voice was ragged. You're destroying me. You destroyed yourself. You think you've won? Family'll never forgive you. They'll blame you for dragging police into it. They already blamed me for things I didn't do. At least now the truth gets airtime. He swore, then hung up. Friday arrived with a shareholders' meeting at the title company. Nancy insisted we attend. The room filled with board members, clerks, even the notary whose careless stamp started this. Ria presented her slides, side-by-side comparisons of my signature and the forgery. Arrows marked hesitation points, tremors, unnatural pen lifts. This, she said, pointing to a magnified curve, is the stroke of someone copying, not writing. In my professional opinion, the signature is a forgery. Gasps, murmurs. The notary's lawyer scribbled notes like his license depended on it. Nancy followed with the county recording receipt and the bank's freeze order. Then she looked directly at Mark. Do you contest these findings? Mark's face glistened with sweat. All lies. My brother's staging this. Moore, now seated in back, rose. Mr. Ellison, investigators have traced cash withdrawals from your personal account coinciding with this loan. $30,000 pulled in increments, then deposited into shell entities. Do you deny this? Mark sputtered. Business expenses. Moore held up a document. Subpoenaed records from the credit union. Transfers to an LLC registered under a false manager. That's money laundering. The room went silent. I slid one final piece across the table, a photo of the realtor key box I'd found on our family door. This wasn't just fraud on paper. He prepared to sell out from under me. Nancy spoke the closing line. Ladies and gentlemen, The deception is not only civil fraud, it is criminal theft by forgery, mortgage fraud, and attempted sale without lawful authority. We recommend immediate referral. Moore nodded once. Consider it done. Mark slammed both palms on the table. This is my family's house. I stood, matching his volume. No, Mark, it's our house, and you tried to erase me from it. The witnesses, neighbors, board members, even Rachel, saw it clearly now. Not rivalry, not paranoia. Proof. Mark's shoulders sagged. For the first time, he had no smirk, no comeback. Just silence. By Monday morning, news spread, charges filed, mortgage fraud, forgery, theft by deception, his accounts frozen, his SUV repossessed within days. I drove past Pecan Bluff that night. The key box was gone. A notice from the state investigator was taped to the door instead. I sat in my truck, exhaling. 10 weeks of humiliation, doubt, and exile. And finally, the blow landed where it belonged. The indictment tore through the family like a storm front. Aunt Carol called first, her voice small. Michael, I didn't know. Yes, you did, I said gently. You just didn't want to. Silence, then a sniff. We wanted to believe him. He sounded so confident. Confidence isn't proof. Rachel texted 3 days later. Is there any way charges can be dropped? He'll lose everything. I stared at the screen. The sister who once told me I was tearing the family apart now wanted mercy for the brother who tried to erase me. I typed slowly. That's not my choice anymore. He made his bed. Her reply came an hour later. You've changed. I almost laughed. No, I thought. I stayed the same. Everyone else is just finally seeing. At Nancy's office, the question came blunt. When the dust settles, do you want to negotiate or let prosecution run its course? Negotiate? Plea deals. Reduce charges if he repays or signs away claims. I thought about Dad, about Mom's wind chimes, about the house sagging under weight it never asked for. I don't want half measures. He stole with both hands. Let him face it with both. Nancy nodded. Closure then. Weeks later, Mark called collect from county jail. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. Mike, his voice cracked through static. They're saying 10 years. Please say something to help me. I gripped the receiver. 10 years is lighter than life. You nearly cost me that. He started to protest, then broke down. The sound of him sobbing should have twisted me. Instead, I felt empty. I won't interfere, I said. Not for you, not against you. Whatever happens, you chose. Family, he gasped. Family doesn't forge signatures. I set the receiver down before he could answer. Walking out of the jailhouse, I felt the choice settle in me like stone. Forgiveness wasn't mine to grant anymore. The state would handle justice. My part was simply not to shield him from the consequences he wrote in my name. And in that decision, for the first time in months, I felt something close to peace. The first morning I woke up without dreading my phone. I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table with nothing urgent to fight. Sunlight came through the blinds, cutting lines across the stack of cleared papers Nancy had returned to me. Fraud affidavits, reports, exhibits. Evidence that had once weighed like chains now sat like trophies. I drove to Pecan Bluff that weekend. The porch sagged the same. The wind chimes still knocked together. But for the first time in years, the house felt mine again. Not because I had beaten my brother, but because I had defended my name. Neighbors waved carefully as I stood in the yard. A few crossed over. We're sorry, Michael. We believed the wrong story. I nodded. I know. I wasn't cruel about it. Truth had its own way of circling back, slower than lies but sharper when it landed. Inside, the air smelled of dust and lemon oil. I walked from room to room, remembering birthdays, card games, nights Dad fixed the breaker box after storms. The house didn't judge. It just waited for someone to keep it honest. At work, colleagues welcomed me back. "Heard the charges stuck," Dave said, clapping my shoulder. "Knew you weren't the type." I smiled, a small thing but real. My reputation was scarred but not ruined. And scars, I was learning, are proof you survived. 6 months later, Rachel invited me to Thanksgiving. I went, not for Mark, who sat in County Orange awaiting trial, but for everyone else. Conversation was cautious, like stepping across thin ice, but at the end of the night, Aunt Carol handed me leftovers in foil, same as when I was a kid. Some bridges, it turned out, weren't burned, just singed. As I loaded the food into my truck, I realized something. Forgiveness wasn't a single act. It was a boundary. I could love family without excusing betrayal. I could attend dinner without erasing the past. Standing on the porch one evening, I watched the sun dip over Pecan Bluff. The house was quiet, the street calm. My life wasn't glamorous, still a modest apartment, still long days at the plant. But it was mine, untouched by forged ink, unshaken by lies. I had chosen not to carry Mark's weight anymore. Not his debts, not his schemes, not his smirk. I chose me. I choose me. Tell me what you'd do. Drop your story and subscribe Revenge Stories Men U50 USA.